Vaishnavaya Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sarvabhauma Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This is 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga. And today it's text 29. Okay, last Thursday, what was going on? Huh? Oh no. You're the only one. The only hope. I was just thinking. Why you missed it? I see. Follow. Pastimes, not pastimes, points.
That we discussed that we have our spiritual identity. We already have our spiritual body and we have
Okay, we discussed we already have spiritual body. What about this body?
When we practice spiritual life seriously, then we can have it.
Okay, when we practice spiritual life seriously, then what happens?
Then after leaving this body, we can direct
Okay,
and we can reach the state of plane.
And then, who of you would like to retain your body? You like your body?
Yeah.
Huh? Who said it? Really? Huh? Really? It's perfect. Huh?
No, not much perfect, but it is I agree with this body.
What if I offer something better? Would you exchange it?
Yeah.
You would. Okay, good. See, the perfect yogi, he is not a body. Yogi knows he is spirit soul. It has nothing to do with the body. This is dhyana yoga. Anyway, we'll practice this. Sorry how to do that. Okay, anybody knows anything we discussed last Thursday? What the yogi should do? Krishna is instructing Arjuna. This is what yoga is. See? What yogi achieves. What can yogi achieve? What's the highest achievement of yoga practice? That's what we discussed last time. You were there last time? No. You were speculating. Anyway, I mean, maybe it's a good point. Like last time, what was going on? Okay, nobody remembers. Okay, so we discussed the yogi whose mind is fixed on Krishna and he goes beyond the mode of passion. He understands that he's qualitatively equal with Krishna, not in quantity but in quality. And then he's freed from all karma like this. He's freed from all reactions. And then he also, it said, he's constantly engaged in a yoga practice. And by being free from material contamination, he achieves the stage of perfect happiness. Are you perfectly happy? See what then? That's what we have to realize. It's not possible by material means, only by engagement in spiritual practice. On the spiritual level, not on bodily level. Okay, so since there's not much contribution about last discussion, so let's continue today with the new verse. This is Sarvabhutastam Atmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Chatman Ikshata Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshinaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada says like this. A true yogi observes me in all beings, also sees every being in me. What does that mean? true yogi sees me in all beings and sees all beings in me. There's another shloka in previous chapter which said, how does yogi observes Krishna in every living being? Anybody knows that verse? You know that verse? Really? How Gaurav, you learned that verse? You don't even know which verse I'm talking about. Vidya Vinaya Sampane. What Pandita?
Pandita Samadhi.
What do you know that verse? Hare Baba, it's an important verse. You should learn that verse. Vidya Vinaya Sampane. Brahmani Gavi Hastini, Shunay Chaiva Shrapakecha, then it comes Pandita. So you're trying to bewilder me, but Pandita Samadarshana comes, it's the last line. So a learned sage sees all the living beings, he sees the soul in all the living beings. He also sees Paramatma. Sees Paramatma in each other. That's so Krishna is present in everyone. Every living entity is Paramatma. But then how all the living beings are in Krishna? How is that? How is every living being in Krishna? I said, indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So that is there. But how is everyone in Krishna?
As the energy, Krishna's energy.
As Krishna's energy. Okay, let's hear what Srila Prabhupada says. A Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna, the supreme situated in everyone's heart, as super soul. So that's the difference between mundane vision, and within that there are so many categories of vision, colored by the modes of material nature. There are different shades, different colors, 84 lakh varieties. And then there is spiritual vision, and also spiritual vision is not only one type of vision. There is variety of spiritual vision. So what is the vision that the yogi sees? That also will differ what kind of yogi that is, what is he practicing. So it's not many people see the same thing, same object, or whatever it might be. Their vision is different. It's not the same. They have entirely different perception. That's why many times, how many times? It always happens, there's disagreement, right? Somebody sees something, somebody doesn't see. Somebody wants to do something like this, somebody else wants to do something different.
Everyone has their desire. Everyone has their desire.
Everyone has their desire. Everything is so seemingly incompatible. But then the more you practice spiritual life, you know what happens then?
Also, directly connects to spiritual world.
That is nice, yes, but that's not in line with what I wanted to say. That's correct. But when one practices spiritual life, then one can have complete overall perception. He can accommodate all the other perceptions. He can understand what fits, what kind of understanding, what kind of consciousness one has. How does one perceive any object? How does one perceive any person? How does one perceive Krishna? So the different kinds of visions, depending on purity, and then in spiritual life, depending on relationship with Krishna. The eyes are anointed with a salve of love. What kind of salve of love? Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochane. What kind of salve of love that is? That depends on rasa. And that's how one perceives Krishna. That's what we discussed a little bit yesterday and last Wednesday in Chaitamrita. But in the material world, everything is colored. Perception is colored by material desires, which are governed again pretty much by the modes of the material nature. So then perception will vary. But for yogi, see, that's a general here point that Krishna is making. Yogi sees, all beings in me, and me in all the beings. So everything is within Krishna, because everything is the whole manifestation. It's Krishna's manifestation. So that's how also all the living beings are within Krishna, especially when they're withdrawn in Karanodakashaya Vishnu at the end of material creation. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridesh Arjuna Tishtati. The Lord in his Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of a Brahmana. The perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence in either a dog or a Brahmana. So whatever happens to other living beings, Krishna is not affected by it. Of course, he is not definitely pleased if something negative happens. He's not satisfied. If there will be some painful infliction or whatever. Well, what are you doing now? This is Is there some drama going on? So, see now what happens. So, Krishna is not affected as we are affected with. But of course, Krishna is not happy if there is some, he also feels or he relates to the pain of the living being, which is in any kind of body. So that is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but is not present in all hearts. What does that mean? That is the distinction between individual soul. Okay. Okay, the individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but it's not present in all hearts. So Srila Prabhupada gives one analogy. He says, just like you have a kingdom. So in the kingdom, a common person would have his own house, no? He's conscious of his own house, his own land, a little bit, whatever. He's conscious of that. But the king is conscious of each and every place. No? I say that's the difference. So Paramatma is like a king, an individual living being. It's just like some kind of citizen. So king is aware because he knows, he draws the taxes, he knows all the places, he knows what's going on. It's like he's aware, he's informed. So this is the distinction between individual soul and the super soul. One who is not factually in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. How is Antaryami? Krishna is Upadrashta, Anumanta. He's overseer, he's permitter, he's present everywhere. How is that? Is that our condition? No. We're very limited, we're very conditioned. So we're definitely not Paramatma. A Krishna conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and the non-believer. So it doesn't matter, Krishna is everywhere. It's like Hiranyakashipu was challenging his son Prahlad. He said, where is your Krishna? He's hiding in someone's heart, but he didn't know it's in his own heart. It's within his own heart. Okay, wait 1 second. This one. Can you come for 1 second? Just a little intermission. Okay. In the Smriti, this is confirmed as follows. Attavachcha Matrivachcha Atmahi Paramo Hari. The Lord, being the source of all being, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also. Consequently, the Super Soul is always in every living being. So Nitya Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yogi Dadati Kaman. So this is position of Krishna. He one, Eko Bahunam, Nityo Nityanam. There's one Nitya and there are many Nityanam. There are many living beings who are eternal also. But he one, Eko Bahunam, Yogi Dadati Kaman, common desires. He one fulfills desires of all these living beings. So that's very important verse which is found in Upanishads that points out that living being is eternal, Sat Chit Ananda, like it said just here. It has been stated like a difference between Paramatma and the living being. What is the difference? That Lord is omniscient and we are not. He's conscious of all the living beings and places, but we are not. And in quality we are the same. What does that mean we are the same? We are Sat Chit Ananda also. We are eternal, Sat Chit, fully cognizant, aware, and Ananda, blissful. But the quantity varies. And how is that? We see that Nitya Nityanam. Yes, one eternal, he maintains all the other living beings, fulfills their desires. So Ananda means desire. So those conditions are all fulfilled or are present within all the living beings. They are Sat Chit and Ananda also, same like Krishna, but not in quantity, in quality. So outwardly also, every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord, as it will be explained in the 7th chapter. The Lord has primarily two energies, the spiritual, superior, and the material or inferior. So the living entity, although part of the superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living entity is situated in Him in one way or the other. So this is what is explained in Bhagavad Gita here also. It said, Bhumira Pona Vayukamana Buddhirevacha Ahankaraityam me Bina Prakritir Ashtadam Aparayamitastvanya Prakritim Vidime Param Jiva Bhuta Mahavaho Yayadam Daryatim Jagat. That there are two types of material energy, gross and subtle. Earth, water, fire, ether, air, right? That's gross, subtle. Mind, intelligence, false ego. That is there. But beyond that, aparayamitastvanyam. What is that beyond? The beyond is the living entity who is controlling this material energy. That is there. Of course, living entity can also be controlled by the material energy if it desires to become conditioned. What are you doing? Chanting or listening to class? So, therefore, there are two basic energies. There's external, there's an internal energy. And of course, what are we? We are marginal energy as a living being. So that we have to be very clear about, because nowadays what it happens so much, people mostly think I'm God, I'm Bhagavan. Somebody, where did I recently heard somebody say? I was in one class, so I was, I'm also God, but well, what kind of God we are? Right. So that's a big misconception. We have to be very clear. If we would be God, we wouldn't be sitting here. We would be sitting on the altar. So, internal, external energy. So living being has an option. See, it can choose spiritual energy or the material energy. So that's our choice. We can choose whichever energy we want to be associating with, because we are marginal energy. But if we choose material energy, then we have such kind of experiences we're having right now. It's material, so much trouble, suffering now. But if you have spiritual, we want to associate with the spiritual energy, and that's a life of bliss and eternity. So the yogi sees equally, because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations, according to results of the fruitive work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. So that's pretty much very high level of spiritual realization. That's a high level, Uttam level, when somebody sees everybody equally. That they're not equal, but he sees them equally because he sees them from the spiritual point of view. He's not looking at material distinctions. That's like we said, there are so many different types of vision. So that's the vision of Uttam Adhikari. He sees everyone, even though one may be entangled, even though one may be suffering their own this karma or that karma, going through all kinds of things. But he sees that still that living being is part and parcel of Krishna. He's the spirit soul, is part and parcel of Krishna. That's the vision of the very advanced spiritual personality. He sees spirit, he doesn't see matter. And again, it's just a matter of time when that living entity is also going to become liberated. It's not going to be conditioned. That conditioning is temporary. So he doesn't see temporary covering or influence. He sees something that is eternal. He sees on much broader plane circumstances. As they are or they should be from the spiritual point of view. That's eternal. So that's the spiritual vision, not the material vision. You know, we take, the difference is, when it's temporary, we take it as eternal. That's our condition. We are here, we are, in this body, and we are doing certain things, and we think this is how it's going to go forever. That's not like that. But you see, the one who is spiritual, he doesn't see any of this. He just sees the soul. He just sees eternal position. So they are all servants of God. So while in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, and while in the spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly, in either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person, in Krishna consciousness. So 2 points here. We have to serve. You can't avoid it. So what's your choice? Whom do you want to serve? Do you want to serve material energy, or you want to serve Krishna? You can't avoid. You can't say, I'm not going to serve anyone. Can anyone say this? Can anyone make that choice? I'm just not going to serve anyone. You have to serve. You have to serve your senses. That means you're serving material energy, because you're not the senses. You have so many material desires. Are those material desires the desires of the soul? No. You'll be forced to serve. You'll be forced to serve so many things. You will serve material conceptions. I want to achieve this. I want to attain that. I want to this, whatever it might be. So many billions of things, unending things. I want more money. I want better position. I want better this, greater that. Whatever it is, all material. You will be forced by material energy to act in a certain way. So what is better, to be forced or to really act by our own will, pure will, spiritual will? What is better? Spiritual will, yes. It's much better. It's much better. Otherwise, we're always forced. This. We're just completely impelled. We're just pricked all the time by the material energy. Do this, go there, act like this. It's constantly going on. And we are not aware, because we identify, we think, yes, this is what I want, this is what I think. Amazing. It's amazing. And then still we are not satisfied. So then how is that? If you thought this is who I am, and if you thought that if I do this, this will make me happy, then why doesn't make you happy? Do we ever think like that? No. See the level of difference in consciousness. And we are constantly full like this by material energy. And we chase another desire. So many desires, there's no end. Just like it said, so many rivers enter into the ocean. Huh?
We are not fulfilled with that desire.
Yeah, didn't fulfill anything, neither ever will we fulfill. It's impossible. And it doesn't satisfy us. So we are constantly impelled. We're just forced to act. Prakriti Janair Gunai. What is that? Karma Prakriti Sarvair Gunai. That living entity is forced by the modes of material nature to act. Forced by the material nature. So one cannot stop. One cannot say, oh, I'm not forced. Yes, we will be forced. The only way that we will not be forced by material energy is when we engage in the service of Krishna. When we, like earlier it is stated, when we choose spiritual instead of material energy. That's the big difference. Then only that will be possible. And then the last point here, it said that this vision of equality is perfect. It can only be perfect in a person who is practicing Krishna consciousness. Like throughout the world, there are so many different kinds of organizations. There are so many different kinds of traditions, so many different kinds of societies, so many different kinds of religions, and people hope that we will all be on an equal level. Everywhere, wherever, whichever kind of society one or community one wants to be part of, that everything will be very nice, some equality will be there. I mean, how much people in the West, especially when any political party is campaigning or something, people, yes, we have so much hope for some kind of equal rights and equal opportunities and equal this and that. Does it happen? You know, here in India also, does it happen, really? What to speak in some other places, you know? It never happens. Somebody is always subservient to someone else. In whichever way it might be. You know, economically, socially, racially, whatever. Whatever it is never equality. Never equality. It's actually not possible. It's not possible. It doesn't work. On the material platform, it's impossible. It's impossible because it's obviously so many rights. Like so Prabhupada would say, they tried it in Russia with communism. Everybody's equal. But was everybody equal? Was everybody equal? Yeah. So they were not equal. Somebody still had more, somebody had less. Somebody still had great influence and position and opportunities than somebody else. It can't be equal. What does it mean equal? Somebody is more capable, somebody is not as capable, right? Yeah. So you can't make an equal society. It just doesn't work. But the only way that there can be equality, you know, there was one Prabhupada's disciple, he made a little blunder, a little mistake. He went to preach to South Korea. He went to preach to South Korea. And if you know South Korea and North Korea, there's a big trouble still going on. So North Korea is communist and South Korea is democratic, it's not communist. So by mistake, when he came to South Korea, they asked him, you know, what is the reason of you coming here? So he said, I've come to propagate spiritual communism. Big mistake. As soon as he said communism, not the right thing not the right word to use. Yeah. It was not North Korea, it was South Korea. So then he was not allowed. He could. So yes, so Prabhupada said, in a principle, it's nice, yes, equality, but on which basis? On which basis equality? It can only be on the spiritual basis, not on the material basis. Because we see again, material conditioning is so much different, so many varieties. And when we get, you know, in association with all the other people, we can see there's so much difference, so much difference. You can't artificially make everything same in one. It just doesn't work. It's impossible. So that's the vision of the yogi. Again, as we said, the yogi, that's the essence of this verse, that the yogi doesn't see that difference, material difference. He sees equality, he sees spiritual oneness. That's the vision of a yogi. That's what yogi is attempting to achieve, and that's what he's achieving when he's practicing this yoga process. Okay, any questions on this?
Related to translation, that he sees everyone in Krishna.
He sees everyone in Krishna. We already pointed, he sees everyone in Krishna. Everyone is in Krishna. Krishna is a part of Krishna, part and parcel of Krishna. Because everything is within Krishna. If it's not directly in Krishna, then it's within Krishna's energy. So everything is in relationship to Krishna. Okay? Anything else? He doesn't see anything separate, because if he would see anything separate from Krishna, that would be Maya by definition. One sees something separate from me, into the mind, external energy, Maya, illusory energy.